All right, good morning, everyone. I think we might make a start. Thanks for joining us this morning for a CRC Time webinar. My name's Guy Boggs. I'm the CEO of the Cooperative Research Centre for Transformations in Mining Economies, and I'm joined by Zane Hughes, our Education and Training Program Leader. A little bit of housekeeping before we start the webinar. These webinars are recorded and made available for people to listen to or watch beyond beyond today's event, which is a great opportunity and great resource as we go forward to build a series of webinars that people can access at any time. So please go onto our website and have a look at past webinars as well that may be of interest. Also, we will be taking comments or questions throughout the presentation in the chat. Please pop them in there. Some of them we'll wait till the end to come back to. Some of them, if they're quite pertinent at the time, we'll pause and introduce into the conversation. So please keep those comments or questions coming through in the chat line. But without further ado, we'll get started. So I'd like to acknowledge country, pay my respects to elders past and present. I'm joining you today from Whadjuk Noongar country in Western Australia, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the enduring stewardship, connection and transitioning of country throughout many generations that our First Nations people have been tasked with now and into the future. If you'd like to see any of the work that we're doing in First Nations inclusion, please look at our website and interact with it there. I wanted to start today's webinar with a little bit of a story of where the education training workforce development fits within the broader remit of the CRC. When we started our bid process back in 2019, there were emerging conversations. So we're starting to recognise the important role that professionals working in different parts of mine closure play in supporting our industry, supporting government, supporting multiple stakeholders in the transitioning processes. We also recognise that, of course, the CRC is founded on this idea that mine closure is just as important to the mining industry as the exploration and operation parts of the life cycle. And in fact, as we see more mines mature and our mines move beyond end of life, we recognise that this is becoming an increasingly important part of our industry and the future of our sector. And yet we haven't really applied the same sort of attention to workforce, education and training needs as we have applied to the other parts of the mine life cycle. So one of the goals and ambitions of the CRC when we were formed was start to try and address those gaps. The CRC as itself, we're a partnership of more than 80 organisations from across a range of different stakeholder groups from across Australia, including university partners who are really critical in delivery of education and training opportunities at the tertiary level for people working in the industry. So we've been able to start this journey with our partners over the last 5 years, building the business case for mine closure, really thinking about what is the workforce needs looking like going into the future. How do we sort of start to create some products that are being used by different stakeholders to enhance our understanding of education and training? Closure, as we know, is more than closure planning. It touches on a whole range of different skill sets across the life of asset management. And so really unpacking that, understanding that has been a really important work in the first 5 years of the CRC. And when we developed our strategy last year, one of the 6 key objectives was really focused on the work that we will do in the second half of the CRC to further support the supply chain, the education, training and workforce development. We have 6 key strategic objectives. This is one key pillar which has a number of deliverables in it that we'll be working on over the next 5 years. Before we get into some of the detail, particularly on the postgraduate training that Zane is leading, I wanted to reflect on this broader framework that the CRC has been operating under as we've started to grow the education and training opportunities. First is really informing the business case and the need for education and training growth. This started particularly with the Mine Closure Solutions Industry Reports, one of our most used reports that CSIRO led, where we looked at future growth in mine closure, the mine closure solution industry. Two really important things to that. One is recognising that there are 240 mines due to close by 2040, that there's a $4 to $8 billion annual spend on mine closure activities. So this is a big part of the mining life cycle and great opportunity. The second half of that report, which is really critical in thinking about the types of jobs and the types of training that we need, is we broke the mine closure industry into four key areas. We looked at partnerships and the social social relationships that are so critical to maintaining the license for the industry and the range of people working in those areas and the types of businesses that are operating in those areas. We looked at circular economy and the opportunity that waste reuse and repurposing is starting to create as part of reducing our mining footprint and reducing those closure liabilities and transitions that we see at end of life. The third area, which is the area that we know pretty well, is in the traditional delivery of rehabilitation activities, everything that we do in earthworks, water, soil, vegetation, to create the types of post-mining landscapes that are really important. The fourth piece, which is really growing in interest, is the economic uses of land and how we see the specialisation of businesses and professionals working in the repurposing of mined land, assets, infrastructure for alternative uses. So those four pillars that underpin that CSIRO report were really important to helping us understand the types of people and businesses operating in the mine closure space. The second piece of work that I've noted there is the work that we did with the Australian Mining and Automotive Skills Alliance and Business Skills Victoria, so AUSMASA and Business Skills Victoria. That really looked at a strategic review of education and training options, looking at a range of cohorts, options available through VET and higher education to support mine closure. That report was released at the end of last year. So between those, that we're starting to see the strategic positioning of our work. Second, we are a cooperative research centre. We had an objective to support 50 PhD scholars over our 10-year life. I'm pretty proud to say that we're well past the halfway mark in terms of supporting 29 PhD scholarships at the moment, and some of our students that we've been supporting are actually coming to completion. But beyond the scholarship, what we've done is try to create a cohort of people working across this diversity of discipline areas, work areas that the CRC is engaged with, and make sure that they're connecting with our partners through regional or industry placements. And so we're building, hopefully, a future leadership group that have the training and skills, not only in how to undertake higher order research, but also the job ready skills that are really important in bringing leaders into our workforce. Thirdly, we've been looking at higher education course and modules development, and this is the area of work that Zane's going to really talk a bit more about now, and has independently been involved in a range of areas of work. But I wanted to note particularly the Mass Open Online course, the MOOC, that we created with Curtin University and the University of Queensland. That's been going now for more than a year and has had enrolments from across the world. We're now committed to developing our end goal is to develop a master's program or the equivalent of a master's program, either combinations of postgraduate certificates or diplomas or a full master's, depending on what the training needs and our partners see as most beneficial. And of course, we are invested heavily in a range of different projects, and we are trying to create training ready materials from the projects that we've delivered. So you will have seen our CRC website refresh. Accessibility to our materials is really important, and we're starting to think more tightly around how do those materials really become more accessible to our education leaders. The fourth pillar is vocational education and training pathways, and this is a project that Zane has been leading to establish different again, an actual framework and different education and training pathways within the VET process. We've been in that project really looking at particularly the First Nations capability growth to participate in mine closure workforce, and how VET training programs could be targeting those particular groups. And also in the background here, we're growing our broader knowledge exchange activities. What we've learned is peer-to-peer learning is really critical in this space. And one of the wonderful things about the CRC is we have a national footprint. We're working in regions across Australia, and we have this opportunity to facilitate more peer-to-peer learning through engagement and knowledge uplift activities working between our researchers and our industry pathways. So that's our overall framing. You can go onto our website. As I said, there's some great sort of summary pieces on the higher education pieces that we've completed to date. And you'll see some of the forward-looking work that we're planning to do. I wanted to land just on some key emerging themes that I've heard through the last few years, and we've heard as an organisation, and sets the framing for our next piece. One is demand for quality training is growing and likely to continue to do so. All of the work that we've seen is not saying that we need a smaller workforce, that these careers are becoming disconnected, but in fact we need a growing workforce. This is not only an Australian challenge, but it's a global challenge, and there's an opportunity for growing the global workforce. We've been witnessing, and Zane will probably share a few more notes, but the growth in offerings that are responding to that increase in demand. Some of the work that CRC has done is only one small part of other work, professional training programs that AusIMM has led, and of course Rio Tinto's really important leadership with Curtin University and UBC on the development of postgraduate training programs as well. All happened quite quickly in the last few years. Should it be mine closures or repurposing focus? We still have this tension between the definition of mine closure and the types of workforce that we need as we think and expand our understanding of transitioning concepts. We've seen that in the ICMM guidance that we had the pleasure of working on relating to multi-stakeholder guidance, multi-stakeholder transition models. And this also has some important implications for how we think about the education training programs. Who are we trying to train? What are the skills that they need to build? What is the skills in the mining companies that we need, but also what are these other stakeholder and cohort groups? What are the skills that are needed to support transitioning processes? Some of our learnings have been captured in that Beyond Closure paper that's linked here and will be shared in the slides beyond. We've also realised, whilst we've tended to be a higher education focus, that mine closure is touching on a suite of different skill development areas, and we need education and training products across all levels. There is a trust deficit with industry. We can see lots of forward strides being made across our sector to build trust in our mineral sector and knowledge that we are responsible providers of the minerals that our communities need to support energy transitions to live our lives on a day-to-day basis. But the ability to have trust that we can leave a positive legacy, and what that positive legacy actually means, is really fundamental. And this relies on really skilled and informed people as part of our workforce. Finally, this sort of touching point coming back into the government regulation and broader community and local government perspective is expanding our vision of who actually needs this education and training and who the workforce is that's supporting mine closure. I've been delighted to see more and more mine closure professionals being employed by other stakeholder groups that are not the mining companies, that are really important in working with the mining companies through transitioning processes. So our understanding of the types of roles and the different stakeholders and people that not only organisations, but the skills that different groups bring to enabling a transition requires dedicated education and training programs. So that's my opening comments and framing, and I would love to hand over to you, Zane, now to talk about the postgraduate programs.
Thanks, Guy. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in Australia. As Guy said, I'm Zane Hughes. I I'd like to start with thanking you all for joining us to share this exciting opportunity to look at how we can build Australia's first comprehensive, collaborative education framework on mine closure and transitioning. Before I start, I'd like to also echo Guy's acknowledgement of we both live and work on Noongar Budja, Whadjuk land. I'd also like to acknowledge and extend my gratitude to my own elders. I'm a Wanyigara man from northwest Queensland in the Mount Isa Mineral Province, and Century Zinc sits smack bang in the middle of my country. So my life is well based in mining and mine closure and the post-closure activities that we can achieve. So let me start today by sharing our vision of what we're hoping to create. As you can see on the screen, we want to have a postgraduate framework leading to a master's or a master's-like structure, multiple micro-credentials within a certificate, diploma, master's pathway. The uniqueness of this will be that we want to develop it in multiple institutions across the 7 CRC time partners. We've set ourselves some lofty goals. That's 100 graduates per year or 500 professionals upskilled by the time of 2030. This sounds like a very ambitious project, but we know that the need is out there. We know the appetite's out there. We know the industry employers want this to happen. So we think it's achievable. The mine closure professionals are out there, and whilst they are very passionate and highly skilled individuals, sometimes there's a gap in people's knowledge that they would love to see filled. And we also need to look at what does the future bring in this space. We also want to place Australia at the global leadership in closure education. Currently, there are about 20 university or post-secondary qualifications offered around the world, and I'm happy to share that as a post presentation table, so you can see what universities and institutes we've looked at. We've looked at Poland, Canada, the USA, South Africa. There's a couple of courses in Asia, but predominantly we're seeing Australia leading the way. So we think we have the opportunity to bring the focus to Australia and use examples here. Notwithstanding our own shortfall of not successfully seeing a relinquishment of a mine license as yet. So the framework characteristics, stackable micro-credentials with digital badging. And whilst I'm talking through it today, I will send out a more explanatory note on these different phrases. We're looking at cultural integration through First Nation co-design, industry embedded work in integrated learnings. So taking the research that's coming out of CRC time and putting it straight into the course, but also working with partners who have case studies and learnings that are real-time opportunities for us to share within the sector and making them available a lot quicker than normal. Also looking at diverse pathways for careers. Not everybody wants a master's or a PhD. Some people, which is the benefit of micro-credentials, just want to come and get the gap that they have fed or filled, or to get themselves ready for their future. Not everybody wants a piece of paper, but if we create enough content and learning pathways, we should be able to meet everybody's needs and desires. More importantly, we should be able to give the broader community confidence that the knowledge and skills out there being practiced by our sector are well-based. As everybody knows, and guys stated, estimated 240 mines closing by 2040. We've already had about 10 of those start the process, and many more internationally are about to come online. That represents an investment of about $4 to $8 billion per annual spend, which Australia can lead the way using First Nation knowledge as well as good industry practice and the collective learning that's coming through the CRC time. We also are seeing the greatest growth period in Australia's economic history, and this opportunity should not pass any one Australian by, and it should also lead to great legacies left by our sector and our industry. On the screen, you can see by your own jurisdiction where these proposed closures are going to occur, and as you can see, there's 115 just in WA. My home state of Queensland, there's 53 closures. And we're already seeing some of these closures coming about with innovative and respectful ways to use these assets post mineral extraction. The interesting one is Tasmania has 9 closures, possibly by 2040, but they already have 4,000 abandoned mines or legacy mines that they're trying to deal with. So in a small landmass like Tasmania, this has a large impact, and it has an opportunity that we shouldn't miss. The critical skills gap. We have an opportunity to look at the education landscape, which currently is fragmented. We have no peak body that says this is what a mine closure practitioner needs to know or should know. Although we are working with the CCPA and others to address this, we hope to have that partly addressed by what we achieve here. A lot of the knowledge that's needed in closing or rehabilitating land should have First Nation inclusion and perspective, and we're looking at how we can make that a part of the course, a major focus. Limited professional recognition. We would love to be able to say that there's a certification at the end of this that is seen by everybody based on the content and learning. You also, a lot of it's inadequate practical training. We are talking to, and I have experience of, shift supervisors and superintendents who have little to no formal training in and around mining, other than being in the sector for a while, now being challenged or tasked with mine closure and preparation for closure. So we need to address that. We also have no coordinated approach across institutions, which is one of the areas that is concerning given the legacy implications of mining and mine closure. To date, CRC time achievements, we've, as Guy said, we've got some great HDR candidates out there. We've got the MOOC, which has had over 400 beta enrolments when it was first offered. We have the vet pathway program that we're building now, and we have a few courses in and around tailings management and waste reuse that we're looking at, but there is no formal course in mine closure at present. Employment opportunities, as Guy says, it's not just in the mining sector itself, but we have community engagement specialists, environmental restoration, economic transition planners, cultural heritage advisors, and most importantly, regulatory compliance officers. Currently, there are over 390 people charged with regulation of mine closure in Australia, and most of them don't have a qualification in mine closure because there isn't one, or haven't got a life of asset approach to closure which includes the involvement of First Nation people at the early and during the process of life of mine. So what I'm looking at now is how we are proposing to engage with you and carry out the project. So stakeholder engagements kicking off in July and August. I'm going to have one-on-one with university partners, looking at industry competency workshops, First Nation yarning circles, finding out what people are expecting we should know in and around this space. We're looking at running regional community sessions and student preference surveys. We've got a number of surveys that we're going to be rolling out over the next couple of weeks, looking at university partners, industry partners, general employment employees of the sector, and then First Nation engagement. And these will be very focused questions, helping us to understand what content should be in the curriculum or should make up the course. During phase 2, the curriculum development, September to November, we're going to do cross-institutional design workshops to make sure that we have an understanding of what each other requires and wants to deliver. We're going to have industry advisory panel look at those course content and learning opportunities and help us refine it. We're going to have a cultural assurance process where First Nation involvement in all material will be ensured. It may not be the major focus of microcredentials, but there will be a couple that it is very predominant, the space for understanding First Nation engagement in closure. We'll have a curriculum mapping to competencies so that people can understand where they sit in the life of assets. And then we would hope to pilot a microcredential later this year, early next year in phase 2. Phase 3 is the validation and refinement. We would have stakeholders validation workshops, people who've been involved from the outset, and some new eyes come in. We would get the First Nation advisory review to happen using the First Nation advisory team at CRC time, but also going out to PBCs or prescribed body corporates and native title holders to make sure that what they see as aspirational goals and desires and wants to occur in planning are involved. We'd have a pilot testing where we would invite some people from this group or within the CRC time network to come along and test our curriculum. We will ensure that the test score alignment with the accord is happening with multiple exit pathways and entry pathways, micro-credentials, and of course, this would be an AQF 8 curriculum development. And then we would have delivery agreements finalised with the different partners in and around CRC Times network. Co-design approach. We already know that there is space for improvement in the Indigenous knowledge integration for methodologies for looking after country and planning prior to disturbances. We would have community-led economic planning, taking the learnings from Latrobe, Newcastle and Bowen Basin and using them as opportunities to inform other people, looking at the cultural heritage protocols as they're changing around Australia. And then we would look at the digital monitoring systems that are coming up and being developed and how we can use Geoscience Australia and entities like that learning around creation of content. We want to enhance the existing content. There's a lot of really good environmental remediation, project management. We would love to bolster the regulatory compliance training for practitioners, financial provisioning by mining companies, and the engineering solutions, not just what we do today, but what we train engineers coming out of university tomorrow to know about life of asset and closure at the end of that asset life. So we come to the what's in it for you and how do you get involved to make sure that we create a great product. For universities, access new sustainable education markets, strengthen industry partnerships, share resources, because we know it's getting more and more expensive to create courses in Australia, and universities are becoming risk adverse to having multiple courses available around Australia. We can build research to practice pathways, which means that instead of taking 10 years for a PhD knowledge to make it into the sector, we can do it within 2 years. And we have international recognition as mine closure leading practitioners. If you're in a university, your role in the design, participate, advise, come and share your knowledge in other universities. Where possible, share existing content. If there's an innovative way that you're delivering or have heard of, let's test it in this space. Nothing's left on the sideline at the end of this process. Or you can engage in the governance development. So from a university perspective, there's a lot of opportunity for you to be involved, but there's also opportunity for industry and other partners. So industry partners, we need to know what you would want for your workforce now and into the future. Are there opportunities for work placements? What do we need to be looking at for a skilled workforce pipeline? And it will allow you to demonstrate sustainable leadership in this space. If you're a government partner, we can look at how we can build regulatory compliance if we're sharing the knowledge or understanding each other's expectations through having regulators and professionals working or undertaking the course at the same time. We hope to build that network of collaboration. We can look at how we support regional transitions and making sure that people understand that whilst we may live in the major metropolitan centres, the impact is predominantly in rural, remote areas and regional space. So how do we move our thinking to the impact that we're having out there over the horizon, enable policy implementation better and foster innovation. Our First Nation partners, again, co-design curriculum content, leading cultural assurance, and hopefully create community pathways into the sector that remove the shame and concern that some of our community members have around being employed in the mining sector. As always, it's great to come and listen to somebody talk, but how do you take the next step to get involved? So we'd love to call you to action. Express an interest, come along, join the Coalition of the Willing. Identify people within your university who may also need to be involved, or if there are partners or universities outside the partnership, what they may gain or bring to offer. We're going to ask you to help us map existing capabilities and resources. Have we missed something? Do you know of something that we haven't considered? And what is the benefit of the collaboration model and how should we be doing this? We've got some ideas, but we hope that other people would come and join us and share some ideas. For your consideration now and to put in your diaries, September
2025.
Oh, sorry. I'm back in time. So we're a year behind with this plan, but I'll amend this before we send it out to you. Partner capability mapping we'll hope to have finished early in September. October we'll come out with the initial consultation planning. The partnership framework development, we will hope to have it done by November, and we will share it with people. We're going to be very open, but responses are going to need to be quickly and timely. We have an opportunity in a very small window, we think, to get this through the system, and we hope to have it done this year. And early 26, the design process preparation for actual going live with the course is a plan. That's my contact information if you want to take a screenshot of that, or we will send it around with the presentation after this. We will also be sharing the prospectus. Has that gone out yet?
No.
Yep. So after today, there'll be a prospectus of the project coming out to share with you a lot more detail. We will also share with you what is the international and domestic landscape of courses. And we'll also share with you what is a microcredential, how do we plan to use it, and we will share some learnings from the Rio Tinto-led partnership between UBC and Curtin on the existing material that we are currently delivering. I think that's pretty well it.
Beautiful. Thanks, Zane. And apologies, I'm having a couple of technical issues with my with my teams in terms of being able to stop the sharing function. So I'm going to leave that very important contact up on the screen for now. But there's a couple of questions that have been coming through, and what just the first note is I love that we have a Federation University, a Curtin University, and a Murdoch University source question. When I was looking before. So just, I guess the first comments here, and it's probably the similar sort of theme from Gopi and from Haj around the work that individual lecturers are doing in their institutions at the moment, whether it's in the engineering domains or in the finance domains, to start to engage in the mine closure space. How would they approach you to get involved in the next phase of work?
Oh, definitely. If you've got some content or ideas, or just want to have a general conversation, please reach out to me. I work for Curtin University predominantly, although they'll tell you I work for CRC Time. I'm happy to take any conversations that you want to start with me. Don't think that we have all the answers here. We are looking for solutions and we are looking for collaboration. So open to anything that anybody wants to speak to us, whether it's a university academic or an industry partner. If you feel that there's something missing or that you can offer, or we should have in here, come and let us know. We will send around what would be a suggested model, which we are working on at Curtin. But we'd happily share it with you. Anything that we've already created, we already have delivered the first micro-credential that we've offered to over 140 or 130 students from an industry partner with Rio in the last 12 months. And we have an idea of what we think will work. And we are seeing similar learnings and similar outcomes being achieved at UBC in Canada using the same model. So that's why we think it's the best model. It doesn't mean that traditional units don't have a place, but we're just looking at micro-credentials because it means learners can come and take exactly what they need when they need it, and then go away and practice, put it into practice, or they can come and take the entire suite of what they need to do better at preparing their site, their company, or themselves for closure. Beautiful.
And I think that sort of tweaks into Rachel's question, and it's framed in as a great question for those who have work in universities, cross university and cross institutional collaboration on postgraduate coursework programs. Do we have an idea of how we think that might work?
Yep.
And examples of where you've seen it worked, and how does that connect with the micro-credential sort of approach?
So the beauty of the new accord that was released earlier this year, TESQA and the Commonwealth Government are looking for collaboration and partnership. So for example, there are 19 micro-credentials already available in and around Australia. Curtin developed one on net zero, and we were funded by the Commonwealth Government to build it because at the time they thought we had the academic space to do this. And that now is a resource that's available in its entirety to any other university. So if we are building in partnership, we've got multiple thought processes going into it, but also there's a possibility of Curtin being a technical based with the School of Mining. We would see possibly UWA specialising in tailings or legal. We could then look at Uni SA being around the social side of mining and community engagement, and UQ coming in with its specialisation out of SMI, CSRM. Other partners, they would have their own specialisations as well, and we would love to be able to say either you deliver your own units or create your own qualification, or we recognise those units. Under TESQA, a normal postgraduate qualification or any qualification in AQF 7 and 8, you can have up to 1/3 of the course recognised from another institution. So we've already got it in the guidance from TESQA, but I know of co-badged and co-delivered degrees being 50-50.
And yeah, look, and I think that's, and to the point, Rachel, yeah, this is part of this consultation and design process that we're starting to look at is, how does that work really structurally? Which universities, actually see alignment in that? So, it's possible that we will end up with, it's not necessary that we end up with a 7 university partner postgraduate training. That might be way too complicated. So we want to invite everyone to participate in the process. The CRC's goal is to make sure that the broader community is recognising the important opportunity to build education and training products, and then what can the CRC do to help design that work. Some of the models, if we talk about examples, when I was at Charles Darwin Uni, we worked with the CRC on tropical savannas, and that developed a JCU, UQ, and CDU masters program. I'm not sure it was the most successful example, but because of those complications sometimes between universities. But I wanted to be clear here from the CRC point of view, because some CRCs, and there's other CRCs that see training as a commercial vehicle. The CRC Time's not using this as something to customise a CRC Time bespoke vehicle. What we're doing is trying to catalyse those relationships, and the investment ultimately that happens by industry and universities. We can do some seed investment and the like, but the bigger investment comes from the universities, because there's a business case for attracting students into these programs into the long term. And if we can't convince our industry and our leaders in our universities that business case exists, then we won't, even if we can get a bit of short-term money to get into unit development, we won't see those courses sustained into the future. And that's really the goal here. So some great opportunities to look at some tweaking of what's already available, and how we can set up some novel. And that's why we've said we're not committed to a master's, but we've also said we're committed to developing micro-credentials, postgraduate certificates, diplomas and masters, whatever's fit for purpose here. So really important conversation. And I'm just looking through some of these great questions coming through. Look, Darren, and then a bit to Michael's, but so aligning this with job and career pathways, and specifically looking at the ANSCO definition of different types of jobs that are working across the broader mine closure space. Will that be something we're looking at as part of that framework?
Yes. The ANSCO process, we've probably missed this round to get in and get involved with them. They have started the process of identifying what are the skill sets and roles responsible for closure and transition. So we are hoping very much to create this metadata in and around course content to align with the ANSCO definition process. And we would love to be able to say at the end of this, these are very much a clear career pathway, but also looking at, it's not just about career pathway, it's about knowledge base within the sector and making sure that in the future we have engineering students coming out understanding what closure is, that community relations, finance, procurement, even education has a space to have mine closure in it. So finding a way to, again, people can come and choose whether they just take one bit of knowledge and leave, or they stack it up into a qualification. But we need to make sure that the knowledge base is there. And I think that will be driven by a lot of this job analysis and talking to the sector about what is their future need for workforce alignment.
Next question, and I'll put it. I think there's a couple of things here about money.
Yep,
I think it's important. So two framing I think to this question is, one, how do we see the opportunity to use and attract investment into this area? So one, I think it's two parts, is the CRC. So we've got budget in the CRC, and we're looking at our industry partners have sort of agreed to provide some level of background support into that work. But it's so there's a bucket of money there that we have within the CRC. I don't think it's enough to do everything that we're talking about here. So two things: how do we see us working through to get the investment into these areas, and then how do you see that working with maybe lecturers or different universities?
Yeah. From the learnings that, and I'm happy to share the learnings at another time in a webinar, or we'll put together a paper. I've just recently presented at the Future of Mining the learnings that we got out of the Curtin process, and having an industry partner at the earliest opportunity. And I will say that Rio came to us with the concept, benefited us. So we would be looking at how we not only leverage the small amount that CRC time and the current partners are offering into this, but there is an opportunity for us to reach out to a broader sector and to state government to say, hey, look, we have all these legacy mines. There's 80,000 legacy mines in Australia. We have to find a way of dealing with them, but also the future. There's currently 2,700 active mines in Australia, above 50 people working on those licenses. So we can show that there's an evidence to the university that you work for or we would collaborate with. And the investment, given that it's only 30 hours or 60 hours of learning, is not a big investment to start with. And it is very much a have one or two micro-credentials in this space. And if we're all collaborating at this point to a shared postgraduate certificate, we can build a living business case to then go on to a diploma and then to the masters. And I'm happy to share how we've done that at Curtin.
Beautiful. And then just to extend, because there was a little, I think Michael sort of noted, people outside, not working for universities or companies at the moment, sort of in the consulting space, them, how they might be able to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's always an engagement piece for individual universities. We would definitely have space for subject matter experts in and around the project that we're leading through CRC time. More than happy to have more knowledgeable minds than myself around closure involved in the content creation. We are hampered by the fact that only universities at this point, well, that's not totally correct, but predominantly universities offer postgraduate certificates and diplomas and masters, especially in this space. The vet sector under the AQF framework can offer masters up to an AQF 8. But yeah, there's not a no answer to this. It's come and be involved. It will just be each individual university would need to look at how they engage the subject matter expert.
Beautiful. So that, I mean, really, this is part of the webinars to sort of open up and kick off that consultation process.
Yeah.
So, there's a specific question here, and Sharon Masha from UWA and Bina probably can speak to it as well. But there's a question here about how we connect back to, for example, the UBC work that's that's kicking off here, and maybe that's both UBC but also thinking generally about what's happening elsewhere in the world.
So UBC currently their course content is not academic recognised. It is more in professional development. You get a digital badge. There is no academic transferability. At Curtin, we have recognised it, having been undertaken as a RPL process. There's no credit transfer for it, and that's the only concern we've got is by institutes not having policy framework in place, the risk of not being able to provide academic standing for the learnings is a concern. But we would work with any university in Australia to make sure it's TESQA accredited. And then there's a policy and process which sits within TESQA and the AQF framework that allows us to map and recognise external or international qualifications. That's a larger piece of work, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to even contemplate that in the next 6 months.
But a huge shout out to both Curtin and UBC and Rio for the award that was given for that, for some of the microcredential work. That's fantastic to see some of those spaces filled. There's final comment, and Bean, I think you picked up on Darren's comment around the aligning with the ANSCO areas of work, and what I find really interesting about your comment where you're talking about upskilling, that what we found, and it came through the OSMAS, is reskilling and upskilling workforces as part of both the transitioning pieces, but also upskilling existing mining workforce to engage and be part of the mine closure workforce more effectively. And the reason why I've grabbed hold of that, because I think there's a period here where the mine closure workforce needs to be built, and what I heard over the last 10, 15 years was often people would fall into those roles from other parts of the business and then sort of make the most of it. And so this is about actually saying there's a dedicated skill set and really important piece here where we're reskilling, upskilling. The other line that hasn't come through in the discussion yet, but is that recognition that mine closure requires a lot of the core skill sets that we see in the broader mining industry. Yes, reframed in the context of mine closure. And what this means is that I think there's a fantastic new opportunity for attracting and building our mining workforce more broadly. We know that we have, I talked about trust issues and a trust deficit with the industry. That's really felt in the next generation quite strongly. And we see a suite of people entering and choosing careers very much on a values-based platform. And I think mine closure aligns really well with the values of the next generation and becomes a new entry path for people into the mining industry. So where what I observed 10 years ago was the core entry part was through traditional mining engineering or mine planning or environmental programs, and then sort of moving into a closure teams and closure parts of the business. What I see as an opportunity here, if we re-look at our mining education and training development programs, is aligning them with the values of this next generation, becoming a new entry path for people. Maybe their first career is actually mine closure, and then they move into operations and another part of the industry. And I think that's a really exciting opportunity that we could start to explore. So the reskilling, upskilling is really important. I think also, what are these new entry paths, and how does that align with our next generation and next workforce? Gopi, yeah, just talking about again, funding questions to look at customization. So yes, we'll follow up. So there's some great follow up chats. Apologies if I've missed anyone. We are getting into time, and so I'll probably start to draw the webinar to a close. But we will look to follow up on some of those comments that people have posted in the chat. Feel free to post anything now that you'd like us to follow up on. As Zane said, there will be some more material and slides shared to all who have registered for today's webinar. Otherwise, do you have any closing comments you'd like to make?
Please reach out if there's a conversation you want to have. I'm always happy to take advice and work with anybody. As I keep saying, we don't have the answers, all the answers. We've got some. We've possibly got a good idea, and we'd love to see it worked on and turned into an industry-wide collaboration with as many willing shoulders as we can.
Brilliant. Thanks everyone for your time. Look forward to working with you in the next steps of this journey. Thanks everyone.
Thanks guys.